Greetings and salutations, one and all, and welcome once again to another Comic Combat on Grudge Match, the show that throws two gladiators of the graphic medium into the deep end to see who will sink and who will swim. Today's match sees two of the most similar characters we've ever seen going head-to-head. From Marvel, Guardian of the Universal Nexus, Man-Thing, and from DC, the elemental embodiment of the green, Swamp Thing. These two characters have incredibly similar backstories, similar powers for the most part, and even came about at relatively the same time or close to it. Starting with Man-Thing first, he was created in May of 1971. He was originally a human named Ted Sallis. He was a scientist who developed a serum that was meant to make people immune to all forms of toxin, but it was flawed. But he did try to use it as a template for creating a new super soldier serum, much like the one that empowered Captain America. The villain group AIM wanted that serum, and so they chased him into the Florida Everglades swamps, which also happened to be the nexus of all realities, and Ted Sallis injected himself with the serum in order to keep it from those who were chasing him. When he did, it transformed him into the large, hulking swamp creature known as Man-Thing. And ever since that time, Man-Thing has remained in the Florida Everglades swamps as the new guardian of the nexus of all realities that is housed there in that swampland. That is the joining point of all the different universes, all the offshoot realities in the Marvel Universe all converge in that one spot, the nexus of all realities, and Man-Thing is the guardian of it, so that allows him to have teleportation abilities by using the nexus of all realities to both anywhere on his own world, as well as being able to teleport to potentially other times and other dimensions as well. Man-Thing's body is composed entirely of the vegetation of the swamp that he inhabits, and he can add to his bulk and mass by taking in other parts of the swamp, or his body can dissolve into the swamp and he can then put his consciousness into other vegetation in other parts of the swamp, essentially being able to rise from anywhere in the swamp that he chooses. He has potentially unlimited strength that's in direct proportion to whoever he's fighting. Sometimes he's seen just lifting cars and things of that nature, but he's even gone toe-to-toe with characters like the Incredible Hulk and held his own. So his strength varies and is potentially unlimited because of the mystical nature of the Nexus of All Realities where he lives. The transformation into Man-Thing left Ted Sallis completely mindless. He has no remaining vestige of his former personality or humanity. So he's a mindless creature, but he has empathic abilities. He can sense the emotional states of others around him. And if anyone has violent emotions in their psyche, intentions on hurting him or others, he can become violent as well. And also, if anyone around him feels any type of fear, his body will start to produce a mystical acid that can burn virtually anyone with his touch. That's why there is the famed saying about Man-Thing, "Whosoever knows fear burns at the touch of the Man-Thing." Now, this is a mystical acid, so it's not necessarily confined to just the physical properties of acid itself. He's been able to burn incredibly powerful, mystically enchanted foes who would seem to be immune to fire or any normal corrosive material. So it is capable of burning practically anyone. And it's also believed that his empathic nature allows him the ability to actually instill fear into those he is in combat with. So if he were to fight somebody of massively powerful ability who wouldn't normally be afraid of someone like the Man-Thing, he can actually instill fear into them so that they will be fearful, and then he'll use his burning touch against them. Swamp Thing, real name Alec Holland, was created very close to Man-Thing in November of 1972, just a few months later. He was created in much the same way as he was a scientist who was working on a new formula, and gangsters came in and blew up his lab that was located in the Louisiana Bayou, and it covered him with his new formula and set him on fire, and he dove into the swamp, and that's when all the swamp started merging with his body, turning him into the Swamp Thing creature that we all know. He also has a body composed of swamp vegetation particles and can take in other vegetation around the swamp into himself to increase his bulk, allowing him to grow to potentially giant proportions. and he can also diffuse his consciousness into other parts of the swamp, his body decomposing into the swamp, and then a new body rising from somewhere else. He also has plant control, not just within his own body, but he can also control any plants in his vicinity, causing vines to wrap up an opponent or trees to fall and crush an opponent. He also has potentially unlimited strength. His strength comes due to his connection with the green. The green in the DC universe is the entire life force of all vegetation in the universe, all converged into one ethereal being and plane of existence. And Swamp Thing is the physical embodiment of that green, of that energy, bioenergy source for all vegetation. And because of that, he has potentially unlimited strength as well, that is tied directly to the well-being of the green itself. As long as there's plenty of vegetation in the universe growing well, he can have potentially unlimited strength. He's also a elemental, which allows him certain elemental control. In the past, he's been able to utilize the primary elements of earth, air, fire, and water. Now, this is not abilities that he has consistently used, and anytime he has used them, it's been few and far between, and he has lost those abilities quickly thereafter. And additionally, ever since the New 52 retcon of the DC Universe occurred, Swamp Thing has also become a White Lantern. He's one of the very, very few members of the White Lantern Corps, which basically is composed of him and Kyle Rayner. So this means that he has a White Lantern power ring connected to the force of life throughout the universe. This allows him to be connected to all life in the universe to a certain degree and potentially create hard-like constructs much like the Green Lanterns use, but whereas theirs is fueled by will, Swamp Thing's is fueled by the force of life itself. So having taken a look at the powers, backstories, and abilities of these two characters, it's time now to determine who would win if they were to ever collide in one-on-one competition. That winner's going to be Swamp Thing. While the mystical nature of the nexus of all realities seeping those magical energies into Man-Thing does allow him to burn literally anyone of any power level with his touch, Swamp Thing has the edge of the White Lantern Power Ring, which is an incredibly powerful tool, making him one of the most powerful beings in the entire DC universe if he properly utilizes it. Not to mention the fact that becoming the living embodiment of the green, the universal life force of all vegetation throughout the entire universe, gives Swamp Thing access to a very high level of almost unlimited energy. So those two things, the green and the white Power Lantern ring, are going to put Alec Holland, Swamp Thing, just over the top of Man-Thing when it comes to this grudge match. So message me down below, let me know what you think of the outcome of this fight, and as always, any suggestions for future grudge matches. We'll see you everybody next time on the next edition of Grudge Match.